listening to DFZRadio.com.
Oh, hey there, gentle listeners. This is your buddy, Herb the Wizard, and I'll be ready in just a minute. Just let me find it on the dial.
Like a woman and died a girl, fighting all evil deeds. Each writes for a magazine, hiding the life she leads. Electro woman and died a girl.
Well, there we go. This is it. Get ready. We're going to start the show. And now it's time to listen to a little bit of the wonderful and delightful Kelly Erickson, currently playing with Teaser.
We got some seeds to grow, he'll keep you in the know. Variety to claim, so baby, what's his name? He's a man to know. He'll make your garden grow. Grubby Cup's his name. He's the man who make a change.
Hello there, gentle listeners. This is your roving bard, Leaf Malone, reporting on the Grow with Grubby Cup show, brought to you by DFZ Radio at DFZRadio.com. And here they are, the buds of the circle table. Oh, see, it is I, Sancho Banza. Good evening. I'm Alfred the Dungeon Keeper. Hi there, friends. This is the Irreverent Joe. And I'm Herb the Wizard. Psst, it's me, Vinny the Viper, the Sheriff of Rotting Puck. And I am your host, the Green Knight, Grubby Cup Stash. Thank you for joining us here on the Grow with Grubby Cup show. Brought to you by the good folks over at DFZ Radio at DFZRadio.com. Well, hi there, Grubby. Are there any upcoming events that our general listeners might want to know about? Why, yes, there are, Herb. If we go over to grubbycup.com real quick. On 12/12 in California at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds will be the Emerald Cup, which is a very popular event with outdoor gardeners. And skipping ahead to 6/18 in Michigan, UPGC will be having their Growers Cup and Conference again. And I'm trying to make arrangements to get to that one. I had a lot of fun at that last year and looking forward to making it again next year. That's all I have on the list right now. If you are a hydro shop or related industry type and you are having a event, a customer appreciation day at a hydro shop, anything like that, please let me know. You can get a hold of me at grubbycup.com, on Facebook at the Grow with Grubby Cup show, or care of this station. One way or another, get a hold of me. Let me know what the event is, what the dates are, contact name, and a phone number where I can verify that. And not only will I announce that for free on the Grow with Grubby Cup show, but I'll put you on the very front page of grubbycup.com, at least when it gets near time for your event.
Well, gee, Grubby, that sounds like a deal. I mean, all they gotta do is tell you, and then they get some free advertising. That sounds like it shouldn't be too hard of a sell.
Hello there, Mr. and Mrs. Jenna Reader and all the ships at sea. Now it's time for...
The Grubby Cup is a portion of our program where we take questions from you, the general listeners, and read them here on air. Please keep in mind that that plant that shall not be named shall continue not to be named, so please don't include it in your letters.
Well, Grubby, I have a letter for you right here. The letter, it reads, Dear Grubby Cup, is there anything special I should know about mixing up nutrients, as I am a new grower with not much experience? And it's signed Nubile Newbie.
Yeah. The mixing, especially if you're using a company nutrient, a pre-bottled commercial nutrient, really isn't that difficult to do. But here's a couple of tips anyway.
So by commercial whatever you say, you mean something like Botanicare or one of those companies?
Yeah, so something, that you buy in bottles or what have you, and you mix up yourself. Like the kind, or, whatever. Anyway, the water that, your starting water is going to have an impact on your finished product. As long as your tap water, what have you, I'm actually a fan of tap water where it's acceptable. And, just test it, see what the pH is, and see what what your ppm's readings are for it. You want to shoot for, ideally it'd be, 6.2 pH and a ppm of less than 175, 150 or so. And that depends on what the contaminant is, but as long as it's the usual calcium kind of thing, then that's kind of ideal. You can get away if the ppms are a little higher, as long as it's in the right ballpark, and the pH may be a bit off, but as long as it's like 5.5 to 7 ish, you can work with that, because you can adjust it afterwards if you need to.
Well, gee, Grubby, it kind of makes sense. If you put in, bad ingredients in a potion, then you come up with a bad potion. And if you put in good ingredients, then the chances you having a good potion are a lot better.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, And ideally, when you're taking your measurements, the pH meter or the ppm meters and that are somewhat influenced by temperature, because they use electrical conductivity or EC. And so ideally, when you take your measurements, you want the solution to be of the same temperature that it's actually going to be used in. So it's normal operating temperature, so to speak.
Well, that kind of makes sense, Grubby, because if you were trying to test it, you wouldn't want it like frozen or something, because then you can't put the meter in, and because there'd be a block of ice, and then that wouldn't work at all. And I don't think the plants are like that very much either.
Okay, yeah. Don't freeze your nutrient solution. Something else that you should keep in mind is that if you have, a 2-part solution or a 3-part, where you're adding, say, a grow or a base and a bloom, what you want to do is you want to mix in the first bottle, so your base or whatever, and mix that in, and then add the bloom or whatever the grow or whatever the other bottle is that you're going to use. And the reason for this is that if you mix them full strength, the what you want is for the cations and that to dissolve into the water so they become part of the solution, so then they go to the plant. They're available to the plant. And if you mix in, say, your base first, then that gives the nutrients and the ions and that in the nutrient to become dispersed throughout the water. And then when you add the second one, it has a chance to get dispersed through the water and become diluted. And the reason that it's important to do it this way is that if you just mix the at full strength, say the base and the grow or the base and the bloom together, what'll happen is that the anion and cation from the different bottles can bond to each other instead. And where this becomes a problem is they'll bond together, and in some cases they'll create an insoluble salt, which basically means that they'll crystallize and they'll fall to the bottom of the container and they won't be available to the plant because they'll have bonded to each other instead of being, buffered by the solution until they get a chance to connect to something we want them to connect to, which are things like the particles around the root system. So, again, that's why it's important to mix in bottle number 1 into the solution and then mix in bottle number 2. You never want to mix bottle 1 and 2 together full strength. Again, because what can happen is that you can make insoluble salts that way that will fall out of the solution, which basically means it was a waste to try to add whatever got tied up.
Well, gee, Grubby, that kind of makes sense, because if you wanted to get the stuff into the plants, then you want to in some way where the plants can get at it, and if they get together and they bond up together with each other, then that won't work, because then they'll do that, and that will be a bad thing.
If you are using a manufacturer's, a pre-done nutrient fertilizer type thing, my recommendation is to follow the manufacturer's recommendation, generally a little bit on the light side. So if you're going to fudge a little to start with, fudge a little bit on the light side until you get used to how that nutrient, that fertilizer is going to perform and what it's going to do before you start, bumping that up. That way, it minimizes the risk of you burning your plants. And in that, you can still burn the plants with organics, but it's a lot easier to do it with synthetics. So if you're using an organic supplement, an organic nutrient, usually, not always, but usually you can push that up a little closer to the high side and still be safe. With a synthetic, if you get too aggressive with that, you can hurt yourself with it quick.
Well, gee, Grubby, that kind of makes sense. It's kind of like when you make chili. If you put in too much chili, then it's too hot. But, and some people won't like it because it's too hot. So if you're going to be making for a bunch of people and you're not sure how they're going to react, then you should probably do it a little bit on the mild side than on the hot side, because if it's mild, it's just a little boring, and if it's too hot, then it's unpleasant to eat.
And since we're talking about kind of similar, I just want to touch real briefly on EC, or electrical conductivity. And it's pretty much just what it sounds like. It's how well does a solution conduct electricity. Pure, unadulterated water doesn't conduct electricity on its own. However, once you add a salt to it, then that acts as a contaminant, and then it will conduct electricity. And the more salt it has in it, up to a point, the better it conducts electricity. So basically, by knowing how conductive the water is, that can give an estimate of how many salts are in the solution. And the more salts are in the solution, the the more nutrients can be inferred to be in the solution. Assuming that what you added were, fertilizing salts. And this tends to be a lot more precise and useful if you're using a synthetic. Just because a lot of synthetics use salts which behave in this fashion. And as far as the, ppm meter, or a TDS meter, most of all the meters work off of that same electrical conductivity principle. And what it'll do is then it'll take that EC number and it'll either convert it to ppm, and be careful because there's more than one standard on how to do that, to give you a ppm reading. Not to be confused with when you're doing the math behind it and you're calculating the ppms, which is a much more exact and precise number. We're getting ready to go to the break, so I won't get into how they work. But a pH meter works on a different, uses a different principle to determine how acidic or how alkaline the solution is. And one of the things you want to keep in mind is that it's logarithmic. So every number that it's away from is a factor of 10. So, for example, from even or from neutral, which is 7, the distance between 7 and 9 is a lot larger than the difference between 7 and 8. Basically, because if you sort it out and you wrote them out as 10s, each is a factor of 10 bigger than the last one. And now for a few words from our sponsors.
The Grow with Grubby Cup show is brought to you in part by
Upper Peninsula Garden Center in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show. I'm your host, Grubby Cup Stash. You're listening to us on dfzradio.com.
We're listening to DFZRadio.com.
Hi, and welcome to Non-Specific Hydro.
Yeah, hey, I have a buddy of mine that was telling me about a great additive.
Okay, do you remember the name?
Yeah, his name's Steve. He's a good buddy.
No, the product.
No, he told me it was a super concentrated organic enhancer. Comes in a yellow bottle.
Well, it sounds like he's talking about Floralicious Plus from General Hydroponics.
I don't think that was the name, but he also told me it was a vegan bioplant stimulator that contained vitamins, plant sugars, amino acids, seaweed extract.
Yeah, that would be General Hydroponics Floralicious Plus.
I don't think that's it, man. He told me it was something like Dora Vicious Flush or something, and he said it was like an organic supplement that could also be used in vegging or flowering, and that was compatible with hydro soil and cocoa.
Yes, that would be General Hydroponics Floralicious Plus.
Oh, hey, man, I just remembered what it's called. It's Floralicious Plus.
Oh, good. I was drawing a blank.
Floralicious Plus from General Hydroponics. Ask for it by name.
You're listening to DFZRadio.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show on DFZ Radio at DFZRadio.com. And this is our last episode of season 2. With any luck, we will have the new format and all that good stuff all ready to go for next week, where we'll start season 3 of the Grow with Grubby Cup show. And I want to give a special shout out to the folks at DFZ Radio and, of course, to all the gentle listeners out there for keeping me on the air this long. I'm hoping to change things up a bit for this next season. And I've got some plans in place to hopefully get a lot more interviews, particularly from hydro store owners, those sorts of things. But I'm still kind of waiting to hear back on part of that. So it's a bit too soon to tell. Anyway, one way or another, we'll do something a little different for this upcoming year. If you have any suggestions on things that you'd like to hear more of or things you'd like to hear less of, get a hold of me. My email is grubbycup@gmail.com, or you can get a hold of me on Facebook at the Grow with Grubby Cup page. Or you can get a hold of me care of the station at dfzradio.com. Before I forget, I want to do a little shout out to the good folks over at Dome Garden Supply and the Nutrifield folks. I had lunch with them the other day, and it was nice. They seem like a really nice group of people, and hopefully more on Dome Garden Supply stuff here in the next episode or two.
Hi there, friends. This is the Irreverend Job, and I just want to talk to you for a couple of moments, if I may. Now, friends, we are coming up here on a series of holidays that lead up to and are around the winter solstice. Now, the winter solstice is an important date, as are the summer solstice and the fall and spring equinoxes. But friends, what I would like to remind you of is that what a lot of these holidays have in common is a feeling of goodwill towards others. Now, friends, if you're gonna have a holiday that involves sending out little ripples of goodness in the pond of life, and that the intent of the season is to send out all these little ripples of good that maybe you don't do so much during the rest of the year, kind of a try again sort of thing. You get around to it kind of thing. You try to be a little better. Don't fuck it up by being an asshole. Now, you would think that this would just kind of be self-evident, that if you're going to have some sort of a celebration of family and you're going to have a celebration of the good and the warmth and the hearth and all this good stuff, that if you're going to have a holiday that kind of emphasizes good, then don't poo in the middle of it. Don't be an asshole. You're going to be around family, maybe, and there's going to be some people in your family maybe you don't get along with so well. Just don't mess with them. Don't antagonize the situation. Don't be an asshole. And for those of you who can manage to not be an asshole, you may even want to take it that extra step and be a little nicer to people. And part of being a little nicer to people is cutting them a little slack if they're not necessarily the exact same as you. There's a reason why they don't call it Baskin-Robbins one flavor. Some people like vanilla, some people like chocolate, some people like strawberry, some people like all three all at once. And that's an okay thing. Now, there are some people, and they have beliefs that are wrong, and they're stupid. And one of the ways that you can tell is you take somebody's belief in something, and one of the first litmus tests you can use is whether or not it involves somebody being an asshole. If somebody believes that it is right to be an asshole about something, then they're wrong. Now, that's not necessarily to say that everything that passes the asshole test is right. I'm just saying this is a quick way where you can figure out whether something's good, or at least eliminate certain things from that possibility. So if, let's say we've got a particular belief system that says that you eat cabbage on Wednesdays, you can take a look at that and go, well, that doesn't particularly involve anybody being an asshole. It may make things a little odoriferous on Wednesday night, but that's a tolerable kind of thing. If, on the other hand, somebody's belief system says that on Wednesdays, instead of eating cabbage, they're going to hate on some people, well, let's take it to that litmus test. Does that involve somebody being an asshole? Yes. Well, then that's an asshole thing to do, so you can tell that that's not a good thing. Now, you can argue whether eating cabbage on Wednesday is a good thing or if it's just a thing. But as long as being an asshole isn't involved, it ain't hurting anybody, and shut the hell up about it. And if somebody wants to eat cabbage on Wednesdays, let them eat cabbage on Wednesdays. They get to the point where they're saying everybody else has to eat cabbage on Wednesdays. Well, then somebody's being an asshole about what's getting to be eaten on Wednesdays, and that's not a good thing for sure. And that's not even a medium thing. That's kind of an asshole thing to do to people. Now, if you take some circumstance where someone is behaving like an asshole, and you're an asshole back to them is one of your options, but let's take a look at that. That's a plan that involves you being an asshole. Well, we know that's not a good thing because you ain't stupid. Oh, maybe you are. It's not like this world's got any shortage of stupid assholes in it. But anyway, or what you can do is you can try to figure out what's wrong with the other person, at least to the extent of why they're being an asshole at that moment.
Now, everybody gets a little grumpy sometimes. Sometimes folks got a reason. Sometimes they don't. But by and large, if people were better at communicating and one is good at being assholes, this whole place would be a whole lot nicer place to hang around in. This has been a serum from the Irreverend Job. And thank you, Irreverend Job. You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show on dfzradio.com, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
You're listening to dfzradio.com.
Botanicare is proud to introduce a revolutionary 3-part nutrient system that is the culmination of over 15 years of research and development. The Kind Plant Nutrient System. Designed by leading plant physiologists, this is the most versatile, effective, yet easy-to-use plant nutrient system ever created. It all starts with Kind Base. Kind Base contains nitrogen and calcium, but no trace minerals, magnesium, or sulfur. By placing those nutrients in the Grow and Bloom formulas, you have greater control over how your plants grow in your medium of choice. Using coco coir or RO water, just add more base to increase calcium levels. Growing in clay pebbles or rock wool, then just reduce the amount of base to ensure the proper calcium level. It's that easy. Kind Grow contains trace minerals and a proprietary blend of all natural ingredients to help maximize root growth, reduce internodal spacing, and create a lush canopy. Kind Bloom was formulated with the optimum phosphorus to potassium ratio. Your plants will have healthy branch and stalk development, accelerated flower set, and increased yields. Kind Bloom also contains magnesium to help improve photosynthetic efficiency, which is critical in accelerated growth environments. To put it more simply, Botanicare's Kind Nutrient System is the only nutrient system that is fully customizable to your kind of plants and medium. Botanicare Kind Base, Grow, and Bloom. Fully customizable. Any plant, any medium. For more information, go to botanicare.com. Botanicare Kind. Make it your kind.
We're listening to DFZ Radio. Wow.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show. I'm your host, Grubby Cup Stash, and you're listening to us on dfzradio.com.
This is your wandering bird, Leaf Malone, and it's time for this week's Moment of Meditation.
Sit back, relax, let the worries of the day float from your body, and in with the good air. Hold it for a moment, and out with the bad air. As you exhale, feel your body relax. Feel yourself becoming more at ease. And in with the good air. And out with the bad air. And relax. Namaste.
This is Leaf Malone, your wandering bard, and now it's time for Meals and Munchies.
Oh boy, there, Grubby Cup, you said we were going to do something sort of like a magical potion today, and that makes me really excited. What are we doing today?
Well, Herb, today we're going to talk a little bit about growing yeast hydroponically.
Oh, gee, Grubby, that doesn't sound very tasty. Are you sure you're doing the right segment?
Well, look at it this way. Yeast is used to make bread rise.
Well, all right, Grubby Cup, I'll hang in there with you, but I'm still not real sure about this.
Well, to start with, what yeast is it is a small little fungus, and it likes sugar, and so it eats sugar, and it excretes or expels, however you want to couch it. It poos carbon dioxide and alcohol.
Oh, Grubby, so you mean that the sugar goes in one end and carbon dioxide and alcohol come out the other end?
Well, they aren't quite one end and the other, but yeah, that's the right basic idea.
Well, that sounds like a handy critter to have around.
It can be. For example, in baking, the yeast will eat sugar that's included in the bread dough, and it will give off carbon dioxide, which will make the bread rise.
Yeah, I had that reaction one time when I ate a little too much split pea soup. I was in a small room, and I filled that room up with gas pretty quick.
Same basic idea.
Oh, Grubby couple, that makes sense with the bread nap, but now what are you talking about with the hydroponics?
Well, one way that you can grow yeast is in a nutrient solution. So you're going to take something, like water, and then you're going to add some sort of sugar to it, and then you're going to add the yeast to it. And what will happen is that the yeast will eat the sugar, and it will give off carbon dioxide and alcohol. And then once that process is as far as you want to take it, you can collect the nutrient solution, get rid of the yeast, and you have either a carbonated or an alcoholic or both beverage.
Oh, really? That's all right. That could be nice. Could you give some example?
Sure thing, Herb. But first of all, I want to make clear that I'm simplifying the process. If you're actually going to try it, make sure that you look up from a reputable source how to keep things properly clean and the exact methods and things to use. I'm just going to kind of give a brief overview. If you're actually going to do this at home, you should probably do a little bit more research first. To start with, to make a simple soda pop, for example, you can make a ginger ale. And ginger ales are nice because the simplest ginger ale recipes are really simple. All you have to do is take a cup of sugar and boil it in 2 cups of water. Now, since we're making a ginger ale, we need some ginger in it. So to that, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of grated fresh ginger. And you can just take a chunk of ginger and trim off the bark and put it through a microplaner and add that to the sugar and the water. And then you're going to want to bring that up to a boil so that everything is dissolved. And then you're going to want to let it seep for a half hour to an hour. And this is going to give the ginger a chance to infuse the sugar in the water. Then take your concoction, your nutrient solution up to this point, and filter it through a strainer of some sort so that you can collect the chunks of ginger, and that way you have less chunky stuff floating in your soda afterwards. As a side note, since that ginger is just sugar and ginger with a little bit of the lemon juice in it, so after you squeeze the water out of it, you can pop that in a 350-degree oven on like a silicone sheet or something and make a very basic ginger candy out of it. Also, in part for a pH adjustment, you're going to add 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. Because this is a nutrient solution, so we're going to want the pH in the right ballpark for the yeast. And then you're going to take that and you're going to put it in a sterilized 3-liter plastic soda jug. And to that, add in anywhere from an 1/8 to a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, like the dry yeast. You can use champagne yeast. You can use bread yeast. It just has to be a live yeast. One nice thing about the champagne yeasts in that is they tend to impart less of a yeasty flavor. I've heard that you can get a yeasty flavor if you use bread yeast. I've done it a few times, and it hasn't been an issue so far, and it's easier to get. But out of the two, a champagne yeast is preferred, and you can get that from a brewery store or from various online sources.
Well, yeah, but you can get bread yeast down at the grocery store usually.
That's what I've been using. Anyway, so you have your nutrient solution in your sterilized 3-liter bottle, and you've added the yeast to it, and give it a bit of a shake, because right now it's still, by that I mean it's not carbonated, so you can shake it and you don't have to worry about it blowing up. And then make sure that the cap is on well. You probably should have made sure that it was on well before you shook it. And leave it in a place that's not hot but warm, so 70 degrees ish, and let it sit there for a couple of days. And you want to check it along the way, because what'll happen is that, to start with, if you feel the sides of the 3-liter bottle, there'll be no pressure in it, so the sides will squish easily. And then as it becomes carbonated, as the yeast eats sugar and excretes the carbon dioxide and a little bit of alcohol, but mostly carbon dioxide to start with, the sides of the bottle will become firmer and firmer until they feel pretty hard, until they feel pretty solid. When they're at that point, it's important to then move that into the refrigerator, because if you allow the pressure to build up too much, what will happen is the yeast can actually make enough pressure to burst the 3-liter bottle, which makes a pretty spectacular mess. This is also one reason why I advocate using a plastic bottle instead of a glass bottle, because it's a lot less traumatic to have a plastic ginger ale bomb sitting on the kitchen counter than it is a, glass ginger ale bomb sitting on the counter.
Well, yeah, because, I get in trouble when I blow stuff up, and even if I don't get in trouble, then I got a mess to clean up. So I want to be a little careful with that.
And by the same token, not to alarm you, but when you first open a bottle for the first time, you might want to do it in the sink with a towel handy, at least until you get a feel for it. But anyway, once it's hard and it's been in the refrigerator long enough to be chilled in that, then you can, have yourself a glass, and it should be a carbonated ginger ale beverage.
Well, gee, Grubby, that sounds awful good. But doesn't it have some alcohol in it? Where's the alcohol come into play?
Well, the yeast will make a lot more carbon dioxide than alcohol, in that, the amount of carbon dioxide it needs to carbonate a beverage, it will make that very quickly in comparison to the amount of alcohol that it produces. With the soda pop, there's, it's not quite negligible, but it's very minimal. However, if you let that carbon dioxide escape while it's sitting on the counter, you do something like putting a vapor lock on it so that it stays sterile, then what will happen is it will continue to vent CO2. Because the CO2 has a way to escape, it won't build up pressure, so it won't carbonate. But that will allow it then to ferment long enough for the alcohol to start building up. And that's basically how you make a beer or a wine. It's that same, process, but instead of capping it early and capturing that carbon dioxide to make it a carbonated beverage, you allow that carbonation to escape, and basically there you're looking for the alcohol content.
Well, gee, Grubby, that sounds like a very cool kind of magical potion. I may ever give that one a try.
You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show. I'm your host, Grubby Cup Stash. You're listening to us on dfzradio.com.
We're listening to DFZ Radio.
Hi, and welcome to Non-Specific Hydro.
Yeah, hey, I have a buddy of mine that was telling me about a great additive.
Okay, do you remember the name?
Yeah, his name's Steve. He's a good buddy.
No, the product.
No, he told me it was a super concentrated organic enhancer. Comes in a yellow bottle.
Well, it sounds like he's talking about Floralicious Plus from General Hydroponics.
I don't think that was the name, but he also told me it was a vegan bioplant stimulator that contained vitamins, plant sugars, amino acids, seaweed extract.
Yeah, that would be General Hydroponics Floralicious Plus.
I don't think that's it, man. He told me it was something like Dora Vicious Flush or something, and he said it was like an organic supplement that could also be used in vegging or flowering, and that was compatible with hydro soil and cocoa.
Yes, that would be General Hydroponics Floralicious Plus.
Oh, hey, man. I just remembered what it's called. It's Floralicious Plus.
Oh, good. I was drawing a blank.
Floralicious Plus from General Hydroponics. Ask for it by name.
You're listening to DFZRadio.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show. I'm your host, Grubby Cup Stash. You're listening to us on the DFZ Radio Network at dfzradio.com.
Oh, Senor Grubby Cup, I have a letter for you.
All right, Sancho, what's the letter say?
Oh, the letter, she's from Miss Jane, and Miss Jane is trying cocoa, and she wanted to know if there's anything that you should know about it.
Well, Jane, when switching from soil to cocoa, there's a few things to keep in mind. One, since the cocoa itself doesn't supply any nutrients in any substantial amount, the only nutrients that your plants are going to have access to is what you add to it. This is part of why soilless and hydroponic systems are a little bit less forgiving than a regular soil media, which usually has enough organic material in that to at least supply some nutrition to the plant, which is why it's more important to fertilize appropriately in a soilless or a hydroponic setup than it is if you're using a more traditional, soil organic mix.
Ooh, see, I see. It only has what you put in it.
That's right, Sancho. One of the things particular to cocoa is that without getting too much into the chemistry of it, when the cocoa is fresh and it's new, it has the ability to absorb and bind up calcium and magnesium. This is because initially cocoa has a lot of places for calcium and magnesium to bind to. Now, the good news is the way that it does this, it makes it work kind of like a sponge in that it will absorb a certain amount of calcium and magnesium, and once it reaches its saturation point, then the calcium and magnesium that's added after that will be available or more readily available to the plant.
Ooh, see, I see.
Now, a common way to correct this is to, when you're first using it in the first few weeks, and that is to give it some additional calcium and magnesium. often in the form of something like Cali Magic or CalMag or, any of the calcium, magnesium supplements.
Oh, I see. So with the go-go, you add a little calcium and you add a little magnesium until it's all filled it up. And then it's good.
In nutrient formulas that are designed for cocoa, take a look at which one you're using, because quite often they will have elevated levels of calcium and magnesium in them already, and you don't want to overdo it. So just like with nitrogen or any of the other nutrients, you want to make sure that the plant has enough, but you don't want to overwhelm it. You don't want to overdose it. Speaking of which, I'd like to remind you that underfeeding is a smaller error than overfeeding, because in general, as long as you feed it enough to where it's not going to show nutrient deficiencies, then what'll happen is if it is slightly underfed, what have you, it will slightly underperform. If you overdose the plant, if you feed it too much, what can happen is you'll get what's called a nutrient burn. And this can be detrimental to the plant, and you can kill a plant that way, or at least really tick it off.
Oh, see, it is better to err on the side of caution.
Another thing that you'll find with cocoa is that its moisture requirements are a little bit different than what you may be used to if you've been growing in soil. But overall, if you kind of think of it as, old soil that's had all the nutrients in that leached out of it, so that it only has what you give it, that'll put you in about the right mindset for it. Growing in a soilless media or a cocoa media is very similar to a regular soil type experience, unless you're using it in as part of a more elaborate or complicated hydroponic system. If you just have your mix of cocoa and perlite or straight cocoa, whatever it is that you're using, you can hand water it and feed it and pretty much treat it like any other potted plant.
Ooh, see, I see.
Well, thank you for your letter, Miss Jane, and I hope that helped out a little bit.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Thank you once again for tuning in. This has been your host, Grubby Cupstash. You've been listening to us on dfzradio.com. Until next week, I wish you and yours peace, love, and puka shells.
You got some seeds to grow, he'll keep you in the know. Variety to claim, so baby, what's his name? He's the man to know. He'll make your garden grow. Grubby Cup's his name. He's the man who'll make a change.
Oh, wow, you listened to your whole show and you even listened to your very end of your theme song and everything. You should be very proud of yourself, because I'm very proud of you, because you're a very special person. And I want to thank you for tuning in to the Grubby Cup Show, because we're getting ready and we're going to start our season number 3. That'll be our 3rd season, and that's not too bad. We've been on the air now for going on our 3rd year, and I think that that's a nice thing, and I want to thank you guys for helping make that happen. We're going to start season 3, and we're going to change things up a little bit. We're going to change the format a little bit, and I hope you like it. And if you want to say if you like it, you go to Grubby Club Show on your Facebook, and you can say that you like it. And if you don't like it, then just shut the hell up.
You're listening to DFZRadio.com.